let's start with MARII, with the first question. We frequently heard about EV, but we seldomly heard about the e-mobility, which I believe comprise a wider scope to be covered. By definition, e-mobility or electromobility is a technology associated with any vehicle that is powered by electric motor. Can you tell us more about what e-mobility is and what aspect does this term refer to in terms of MARII government?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Petra.
Panggil Pet dia.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and very good morning. I think to answer from the e-mobility perspective, I need to bring to the scope of the policy itself. Under the National Automotive Policy 2020, we mark this the e-mobility part of under the next gen vehicle, whereby under the National Automotive Policy, we have 5 roadmap focused on human capital development, related to the supply chain development, and also regulation, standard, skill and technology, and so on. But under that 5 roadmap, there's also 3 pillars of the new next gen vehicle, the IR 4.0, and also mobility as a service, whereby under the e-mobility is part of the next gen vehicle, whereby we have EV development, electric vehicle, and also for autonomous vehicle. For the electric vehicle, that where the e-mobility resides, it consists of electric cars, electric vehicles, electric bus, electric trucks, electric motorcycle, e-bike, and so on. The element of it is whereby it is driven fully or partly, driven electrically, and also it consists of energy storage in it, and also a combination of where it gain the power from the grid, the grid itself. So with that 3 element, you can see that e-mobility is much bigger than the terms that we use e-mobility. Even if you talk about the more transformation of what we call under transformation and mobility, it consists of the group of the thing what we call under mobility. There's 3 mobility things under the mobility that you can ride on it. For example, like the mobility of the EV bikes, EV vehicle, and so on. And the mobility that you can control of it. For example, like now we're talking about the drone, the autonomous vehicle. The third one is related to the mobility that you can hold on it. That is the element of, for example, like apps, the using of the software, and so on. So that's why the electric mobility can consist within that 3 element, and also it's much bigger and it cut across other sectors. For example, like when ABB mentioned about the ecosystem, whereby you have the automotive stakeholders, the energy provider, or from the energy side, and also the integrator in the middle of it. So that's why the element of it is much bigger. And even when you see on the transformation, that's why the terms being used worldwide is the transportation and mobility, TNM, for the e-mobility of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, all this while I thought e-mobility is the scooter, the e-bikes and all that. But thank you, thanks for the explanation. It was a good one. The next question is directed to Mr. Darren. Fear of changes is common when it comes to new technology. Being in the loop of well-defined supply chains of ICE vehicle, make it difficult for anyone, especially automotive sector, to adopt to e-mobility. Would you suggest any existing or future approaches to enhance the e-mobility adoption globally and Malaysia specifically?
Hi, good morning everybody. Yeah, just to introduce you a little bit about us. I'm Darren and I represent Selangor and Federal Territory Auto Parts Association. So our view will be from the aftermarket industry. Okay, so the aftermarket sector, of course, plays a very big role in this transition as well in BEV, because reliability is one of the very good indicator of a good car brand, isn't it? And where does it come from? Actually, it comes from after you get the keys, not before, right? So this is the aftermarket industry. So In order for this transition to go into BEV smoothly, we have to address the ICE sector, right? What do we do with the previous cars? So our association always talk about this end-of-life vehicle program that our government is also looking into. So we hope that in order for this smooth transition from from ICE to BEV, we will make it easy for the users of the existing cars to end the car life, right? Not make it too difficult. Like maybe you can apply online or something and send to a center and it can be resolved. So with that in mind, maybe the industry players will need to play a role in becoming panels, into discussing about the policies, because some of our members are also in the used parts business and they are very experienced in this field we call it kereta potong, right? And I believe this that will be quite interesting if we play a role in this decision making moving forward, right? So another part that we also had a dialogue with MARII earlier on from our association, which is the training and digitalization of our auto parts industry, right? So imagine all the CFO, right? Or all the auto parts shop are used to selling radiators, and now we're talking about electric motors, right? Nobody knows what is inside, right? So this training is also very vital. I think it's very crucial. We're talking about TVET now. We also, our industry is also looking into moving out from book catalogs, looking for parts, right? And now moving into more digitalized space, right? If you look at more advanced countries, you can just punch in a number plate and you can get all the parts from the car, right? So I believe in our auto parts space is also moving towards that direction, and maybe we will need to participate more with the government's decision in releasing data, especially in when we are talking about just putting in number plate, right, and getting out the parts list and so on, right? Now we see this transition moving in the insurance space, where you can actually put in your license plate and your IC number, and you can get the car model. So maybe we are looking at something similar, but for the auto parts space, so that it's easier for the end user to actually, or the mechanics even, to find parts to replace for their vehicles. So I think that will be some of the policies that we're looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good one. Two things I know I pick up just now. It's first, the end life policy. End life policy in China, if you change your ICE vehicle today and you change to EV, you get money. That's what happened in China. And talking about the aftermarket parts, as an experienced seller of EV, I think the future for repair will be more on the software side of things. This is based on the experience that we had.
Yeah, totally agree.
Anyway, thank you. So next question will be directed to Mr. Nizar again from MARII. With that being said, government or X, depends on previous answer, plays an important role in realizing the advancement of e-mobility. Can you please share the recent national mandate, policies and targets or incentive provided by government in supporting the electrification of transportation in Malaysia? After that, I would like to ask Professor Insinyur Mahdi for the same question.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. The overall mapping of the EV policy, we can say that is combination of few current policy, whereby of course under MITEC, the National Automotive Policy, the strong one, and also the low carbon mobility, and of course related to National Energy Policy. these three main policy. But other than that, it's also related to national transportation policy and also the ITS blueprint. That is one of the elements that we also include for that purposes. But to complete on the current policy, you can see that when the release of the new industrial master plan is the real direction of the whole implementation of EV development, or what we call the next gen vehicle, because under the NIMP itself, it highlights about the zero emission target and also the mission base, whereby the completion of the development of from the industry side, from the funding. It highlight all about the key component related to the policy, whereby related to funding, infrastructure, regulation, skill, and also technology. So with NIMP as a fundamental of it, you can see that usually IMP will drive within 10 years. But when we launch this under 2023 up 2030, 7 years, the reason is we can also highlight because of currently what we call under the technological years is actually equivalent of certain X years. For example, the maturity of the ICE engine, we can say around 100 years. But if we talk about technological years, the maturity of the EV or the next gen vehicles is only took 5 years only. So that's why it's relevant for NIMP also to take much shorter implementation for that purposes. So we can see from the NIMP standpoint, then when we go up above the implementation to the Malaysian plan, the Malaysian plan is usually for each of 5 years. So from 2020 to 2025 and also 2025 and also up to 2030, that will be the 13th Malaysian plan. So if you go higher, that is at the level 3. That is where the policy that I mentioned, NFP, the industry forward, talk about the national energy policy and so on, low carbon mobility and so on. But having said the whole policy, how we need to trickle it down into implementation. That's why from NFP itself, we have a roadmap and also blueprint clearly about the supply chain development, technology development, the human capital development. Even MARII are taking the lead as the industry lead body for training purposes, for example. So for others, because right now it's also involved related to the energy and also as a system integrator for that purposes. So I see that to implement it into the implementation, when we want to trickle into the implementation, the involvement, what they mention usually under the triple helix concept from the government, academia, and also from the industry must have a strong collaboration and also to drive it further. One of the areas I think that we took the initiative through MITEC under the implementation of the EV task force. We mentioned that it's being chaired by KSU himself. But to make it further for the fast approval, even now there's a national EV steering council, whereby it's being chaired by the minister himself, Tangkas, and also by other 5 ministers. It's so much equivalent like a cabinet decision. Then it can be presented back to the cabinet and also to get fast approval, because some of the discussion is more and focus on the technical aspect of it. So with that kind of implementation, I can tell you guys that rest assured that the policy and also how we drive the EV development is much better right now. And for the implementation, it's just more collaboration. For example, like this forum, the discussion is crucial for us to implement all this policy. Okay.
Thank you. Wah, 7 tahun Pak Mahdi kita Indonesia, kita di Malaysia. What about Indonesia? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I'm from Indonesian Automotive Institute. Established since 2016. Still young compared with the MARII 2010.
Yeah.
So I work with this government and also some association in Indonesia as well as with the private sector. That's the policy in Indonesia actually for this e-mobility have been started from we established in 2013, 2014, we call the LCGC, low cost and green car. Yeah, that is started of this. How to import, how to make the policy and realize the market potentiality in Indonesia, and also the people can inform with this kind of the policy. Then after that, in 2015 and 16, developing for the LCV, low carbon emission vehicle. That is the condition of this LCV, of course, not only considering the internal combustion engine, but also hybrid and also multi-pathway, that kind of the biofuel, because Indonesia have many resources for the biofuel. Then finally, based on the President Decree number 55 in year 2019, developing the BEV policy. So this BEV policy focus for the how to utilize the EV, e-mobility in Indonesia by using the resources from Indonesia, such kind of the nickel, cobalt, mangan, to be the battery, the cell, the precursor, cathode and anode, and finally battery cell, and then develop to be battery pack and then used for the EV in Indonesia as well as in other countries. Yeah, in conjunction with this, I believe based on the last KIT committee leader meeting in ASEAN, of course also developing some kind of the spirit, how the ASEAN also to be the center of the EV industry and also the battery industry in ASEAN. So I, as mentioned by Mr. Nizmar, I think the NAP, National Automotive Policy, linked with this also Indonesian policy, I think this is very we make in line. Of course, in practice, now based on our resources and potentiality, Indonesia have a big potential for the making of the EV industry, battery industry, as well as the market. Just I discussed with some gentlemen here. Indonesia, Malaysian market among the 1,000 people population have been introducing 440, right? The user ownership of the vehicle. Indonesia still 90, still very low, and we have a wide area. Of course, in that sense, we need to implement and also to elaborate such kind of the policy, how to make more realistic, not only for the industry as in Indonesia, but also with the other country. We have the experience last time, maybe Hassan also, and me as the businessman and industry practitioner in 2001 or 2003. In the beginning, we have the ICO, Asian Complementation Industry. And also recently in 2017-18, we have the idea also how making the ASEAN car, like that. So I think this is very, very also we need to consider together, how to utilize the potential, the resources in ASEAN country. Can we use for this e-mobility, and finally give the benefit, the biggest benefit for the ASEAN people. So I think that this from the Indonesian policy and the activity so far, of course, we need to, as today we make the MOU with the MARII. I think this is also will be the good step to establish ASEAN Automotive Institute Federation, to give the input, the support to government and also to the business, and to make the more optimal solution in line with the energy and emission. Now in Indonesia, we establishing the roadmap of the automotive industry. Of course, now the potentiality of the battery still until 2035. After that, we need to consider hydrogen and other policy. And also in conjunction with the zero net carbon 2060, also we need to capture to obtain what is the roadmap, and in line with the energy itself, from the EMPTA or from the biomass or solar panel or other, to support this electricity for the e-mobility. So I think that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Made. I like the idea, kereta EV ASEAN. ASEAN EV car. Now, considering the mandates and policy mentioned just now by both of our distinguished guests, does Malaysia or Indonesia being on the right track to achieve those objectives? What is the status, and do we require reconstruction of the present policy to accelerate the process? What are the key marks achievement already been achieved? I can start with Professor first. No, Professor Made.
With this,
key achievement. What is the status now of all this policy?
In conjunction with this realization of the policy, as you know well, also can read from the media. In Indonesia, many players coming. Of course, maybe the market in Indonesia similar with the Malaysia for the internal combustion engine as well as hybrid. So but recently for the BEV, Indonesia coming from China, BYD and other CATL or Wuling, and also other battery maker. And also from Korean, Hyundai, that is also have a big penetration to Indonesian market. So around 2022, just as the EMIT, the population of the electric vehicle already more than 22,000. For the two-wheel, three-wheel, and four-wheel, as well as the bus, electric bus. That is a very big movement recently. But compared with the internal combustion engine, and also recently coming the hybrid electric vehicle, still low. Still low, because our market is almost more than 1 million. And also the export also increased from 300,000 to be 400,000. And the target for the export in the future to be 1 million. And for domestic market also, we would like to increase the domestic market, not only 1 million, because the big population, 270 million people in Indonesia. How to utilize this as the market in domestic as well as also for the export. So such kind of I think this is also a good point we can discuss later with the MARII and also the other player in Malaysia as well as in Indonesia. Just ABB presentation also involved in Indonesia. We can make a more strong relationship, communication, and of course the point here from the government side also have the integration from the upstream industry to downstream industry, and finally also to obtain to the market what is the appropriate product to the market, and then how to follow such kind of the potentiality and resources in Indonesia. That is the condition.
Thank you. Now Indonesia got ruling. What about Malaysia, Mr. Nizar?
Yeah, I think from the perspective of the policy that I mentioned, we did measure it based on, for example, like
Tapi GD belum buat EV lagi.
current new OEMs that's coming in to measure the current vendors that we have. I need to highlight first about the current ecosystem of Malaysia related to automotive and overall mobility. Right now we have around 48 plus OEM that previously we only have 25 plus. This is one of the areas that when we do to open it up for the investment, the new investment that related to high technology and related to the EV and e-mobility. Even in terms of the ecosystem of the vendors, previously we have 600 plus and now increasing 5 to 10%. Much of the involvement of the vendors because they are also exploring with the policy that being set up from the investment that been bringing up from the OEM. They need to have a commitment right now from the CBU to CKD. So with government trying to push for the certain development on the technology transfer, the human capital development, training and so on. So we can see that the booming side of the vendors is also trying to be part of the whole ecosystem. Because under the NAP, we highlight about the phases of critical component. Even for the localization of 70% of localization, we doesn't really focus now more on parts and components, but we are trying to focus on the high value added. For example, in future the development of the LiDAR system, the sensors related to infotainment, the software, the battery management system, and so on. So that's why we can see that the progress is fast enough, but the measurement based on the technology transfer that being monitored for future up to the future next after the 2025 when the element of CKD and so on. In terms of the current scenario, I can see that from 2021 up to 2022 during pandemic and so on, there's a slow movement. But right now, we can see, for example, like PV, passenger vehicle and CV, now reaching up to 16,257 units. Motorcycle a bit low, 390 units, but all the numbers showing double up and some of it also shows up to 1,000% of increment. For example, like buses, 124 units. This one being measured under the current active permit, and also one of it on the ecosystem when we talk about the automotive and manufacturing development, one side of it. But on the ecosystem right now, Malaysia have 1,264 charging station, and I think we can reach the level and also exceed the 10,000 numbers of 9,000 AC and also 1,000 DC. As on overall, I think the most important element that I'm talking about the main roles that MARII can focus, because our roles on the capacity building and related to the standard development and also technology enhancement. So on that perspective, it's on the right track, and we can see also the big players are coming in. Bear in mind that the most important when we talk about EV, we need to know that EV that bringing along with the concept of future next gen vehicle equipped with the autonomous vehicle is the next direction. For example, right now we see the Tesla, because they are being equipped also for the level 3, 4 and 5 by only switching the software or on the air software. So that is part of it, but I know that we also need to see on the other aspect of for the implementation or real implementation of technology transfer and how the much value. We mentioned ABB, for example, like the infrastructure from 42 billion up to 2040, 580 billion. But how much is being spread around and also spillover effect into the country? That is one of the most important things. Okay.
Thank you. When we are talking about EV and its target, we cannot forget to relate this with infrastructure of EV. To support the advancement of this technology, it is crucial to have ample numbers of EV charging stations in public and residential, as well as battery swapping facilities. Now, as being a member of Pekema, we started this charging infrastructure back in 2019 at our showrooms, and just to give an update lah, Alhamdulillah, thank you very much to the government of the day. They have just released grant, some sort of grant for us to populate the country with more chargers lah, DC chargers. That's what we're doing now. And but you know, the best person to ask this is Mr. Lee, because Mr. Lee is, if you know Jom Charge, he's the boss lah. So I guess everyone is excited to know how many charging facilities has been there on developed. What are the challenges you face in providing sufficient EV charging facilities? And maybe you can add if there any effort in promoting localization of this machine to be industrialized over here.
Okay, thank you very much to the moderator and that. I think we have been doing this thing for a very long time. Like
Yes.
what Petra mentioned, Pekema was one of the first that actually installed DC charger at the showroom. I think we started, in terms of the numbers of charger, MARII has mentioned that we are about 1,200 now. We are trying to increase it to 10,000 by 2025. So I think the government, and of course we were part of the EV task force to actually participate in terms of what are the things that can actually be done to accelerate the adoption or the deployment of EV charger in the country. As you see that EV charger, we actually divide into three segments. One segment is on the highway side. So the highway side, you need fast charger to actually replenish so that you can actually travel outstation. That is a must. Then we also need to look at the destination charger. Destination chargers are places where you actually stop by, like hotels or at shopping malls, where you can actually have a longer time stay. Then we look at the last one, which is home charging. As you know, for an EV user, most of the time they will actually charge it at home. 80% they will charge it at home, 20% when they want to travel, they will go out and they will need to find a charger. But if you ask anyone whether they want to buy an electric vehicle, they always say that the infrastructure is not sufficient, even though 80% of the time they will actually charge it at home. So on our side, what we want to do is to make sure that every places have sufficient charger. In terms of the challenges we face, I think very early on is whenever we always face in every countries, or not just in Malaysia, in every countries, we always face the issues of power supply and capacity. There's always not sufficient power for us to build so much charger at a very short period of time. Of course, you will need to go through the process of authority in terms of the authority approval. That is another challenges that we've faced, but I think the government and EV task force is trying to streamline and trying to speed up the process. So we will have a guideline from Plan Malaysia, which will be coming out soon. So that hopefully will help to accelerate the adoption of or the deployment of EV charger. Previously, I think the public has hesitance in terms of the deployment of charger because there are some requirements which are hard to be fulfilled. So I think that has actually been cleared. So we are looking forward to the guideline that will be released by Plan Malaysia. So once it is done, I think the market and the CPO will have more clarity to actually deploy the charger. So that I think is something already in place that I think it's done. Then the next thing, we also are also trying to resolve the issues of having multiple of apps for an EV users to actually download to use it. So one of the first thing that we try to do is we try to have interoperability with a few CPOs. We have done it with the 3 CPOs, which commands about 70 to 80% of the public charger. So we want to make sure that once it is done, we will be opening up to all the other CPOs so that interoperability between different charge point operators will be seamless. So that is something that the association is trying to push. And without forgetting, I think our association is also trying to do because as an EV user, when you reach the place, even the app or the things states that it's available, but sometimes the charger might be down. We also want to push to include the uptime of the charger so that the reliable CPO will map and also will track the reliability of the charger deployed in public. We want to give the confidence for people to actually adopt electric vehicle. So these are some of the things that I think on the association side we can actually do, and also to work closely with the government and also with MITEC and MARII to actually push out the more EV chargers to meet the target of 10,000 EV chargers by 2025, inshallah.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I would like to add another issue is the property, the place to put the charger. Landed properties is also a very big amount of capital needed to open a charger. And I would like to suggest that the government to look at the Rights to Charge Act or some sort of law that actually push any new development or old development to include charger at their property. I think some of us are having problem, especially on apartments and condominiums with their respective association and management. I think with a simple law or an act by the government, this will encourage everyone to follow suit. I just want to add on that one. But thank you, Mr. Lee. Now, apart from infrastructure, it is also important to discuss the role of reliable telecommunication system. Like you hear just now, seamless charging depends on telecommunication. In the New Straits Times publication on the 4th of May, it was announced that CelcomDigi is committed to implement 5G network in Malaysia. When we relate this matter into transportation sector, next generation vehicle, where vehicle becomes smarter and more intelligent by the day, telecommunication system is essential in supporting not only infotainment in vehicle, but also IT security and accessible maintenance service by this vehicle. Now, Mr. T.Kugan, now in your perspective, how do you see 5G network as being a push factor towards e-mobility, next generation vehicle and autonomous vehicle?
Thank you, Petra. Good afternoon, everyone. You would have seen recently CelcomDigi just announced a strategic alliance with a large global energy player. And we just made the announcement during the MITEC conference. It shows our commitment as well from CelcomDigi to really support the government's ambition to really realize the 10,000 charging point stations to be deployed as soon as possible, total industry volume of electric and hybrid vehicles to contribute about close to 15% of total volume of sales of electric and hybrid vehicles. So this is the first of its kind of a telecoms operator combining forces with a energy player. And it's very interesting because when you look at the electric vehicles from a telecom standpoint, it's no greater than just a glorified smart device. It just takes you from point A to point B. All the intelligence lies in the cloud and on the connectivity. From a consumer perspective, if you're driving an EV vehicle, you no longer need to rely on maintenance and so on because all your traditional way of maintenance goes out the door. It all becomes very focused on battery maintenance and intelligence which is going to be provided by solution providers. So from a telecoms perspective, the rollout of 5G for the nation becomes so crucial. We are committed to support. Today, CelcomDigi is has the largest, widest, fastest 4G network in the country. We are already 5G enabled. Now we are accelerating our deployment of the 5G network within Malaysia. Crucially, we do look at 3 areas when it comes to supporting the ecosystem for e-mobility. Firstly, providing connectivity. Obviously, most of the EV cars, in fact all EV cars, will be reliant on some form of connectivity and SIM. And that is a key as a telco provider. That's our forte. We will introduce that. The second portion is obviously in terms of latency. On the 5G network, latency is much more effective, much faster than 5 milliseconds. So it is a way to really accelerate the deployment of 5G for us to enhance the adoption of EV. And the third, which is the most important, is on data management capabilities. Because all the updates, the software updates and the updates for the EV vehicle will run through the telecoms network. So cloud infrastructure and ability to manage that becomes so crucial. So this is our ambition. We are looking at, or beyond providing just connectivity, data management, and the capabilities of the network, is to introduce models which are innovative in terms of adoption of EV within Malaysia. The billing system, because we will be introducing innovative business models for consumers to adopt subscription models, moving away from traditionally what you are used to is paying upfront and buying a car, paying upfront and buying a bike. We are moving away from that, and we will be looking at innovative business models where you no longer need to purchase a vehicle. You just subscribe to a service. At the end of the day, you own the vehicle. Similar to what we have been introducing with smart devices and so on. So that's going to be something which is going to be a paradigm shift for our customers. I think when it comes to challenges, probably digital literacy in Malaysia needs a little bit more adoption in terms of understanding of EV and its capabilities. I think the target for the government of having 10,000 EV stations by 2030 is something which is probably could be accelerated. I do see a potential of that numbers really accelerating due to the fact that the fuel charges, if you look at the crisis today globally, energy prices are going up. Fuel is crude oil price
by
is
2025.
by 2025, sorry, yeah. 2025, yeah, total industry volume 15% is 2030, right?
Yeah.
Okay, 2025. So hopefully that number can be accelerated even further. Yeah. Because if we compare with other markets like Singapore and so on, we are still kind of still touching the surface, right? So I think aggression within the Malaysian economy to really push this will be something which CelcomDigi will continue to support.
Thank you very much. I think.
But I think I need to add
Please.
on the two topic. It touches about the current development that related to, for example, like when we are talking about the EV charging or EV interoperability center or EV interoperability, the integrated data. Right now, the one that we trying to put is we are also explaining this to many software as a service provider, because right now we are tabling the paper talking about the infrastructure as a service and platform as a service will be done by the government. The thing that will be mentioned by the players for them to do the integration and so on is actually we put is at the element of the software as a service. So, but now the current problem is because when we ask the CPO to do an API integration, this is not an API integration at the software level, but we are trying to explore the API integration at the CPO equipment level. So that's why some policy will be put, and even will be try to explore as some standard, and also of course it's like a test bed to be test out together with any CPO provider in future. And also related to telco, yes, right now for 5G element, for the spectrum of it, we are trying to get a certain bandwidth, a certain range of for the spectrum of 5G. But the current proposal is more on the private 5G for the purpose of testing for the autonomous vehicle, because our target is to settle out on the EV thing first and then move to autonomous vehicle. So that are the two things that currently being put and also being discussed at the moment. Okay.
Thank you, Cik Nizar, and thank you, Mr. Kugan. I just would like to add about the telecommunication function. When we first sold Tesla in Malaysia, we had to put the SIM card into the car. That's the first for us. And when the SIM card is in the car, some area you get the reception, some area you not get reception. I guess whoever on the autopilot at the places where there's no reception, I think the autopilot doesn't work anymore then. But anyway, thank you very much. Now, just now when Mr. Kugan was explaining about about repairing car. I mean, all the diagnostic of the cars today are done by on the air update. That must have set shiver Mr. Darren punya spine. You know what business are we going to have? So from the discussion, e-mobility is driving the future of automotive industry. However, this may not be realized without a proper pricing strategy. Okay, this is because public are still contemplating on whether the EV pricing is sustainable. Now, let's dig on the pricing of e-mobility to win the heart of the customer. Mr. Darren, as a trader of motor parts, do you agree that the pricing is the limiting factor towards e-mobility shifting? And if it's yes, do you think the pricing must be considered to increase the user preference toward e-mobility?
Right. I believe yes, definitely pricing is a key factor in any decision making in buying anything, right? Not alone EV. So that we have discussed this before, even with dialogue with MARII about this price, and we break it down to a few sectors. Okay, so price is not just purchasing the vehicle alone. Okay, so we have maintenance price, we have refilling price, we have also time cost. In fact, when we have dialogue with some of our fleet management team that deals with commercial vehicles, right? That is also a price to be paid. Like if a truck needs to be parked at a charger for 2 hours, nobody's got time for that. And that's also a price factor, isn't it? Often overlooked, right? That brings us to fuel cell EVs, which is more popular in Europe, where their commercial vehicles are more towards hydrogen, right? So we go back into the maintenance topic just now where we covered. Okay, this is a delicate issue here. If everything is controlled by the automotive maker themselves, right? And everything goes through the computer system, and users are tied with warranty, and if tires and everything, if all the nitty-gritty other stuff needs to be replaced by original parts at the 4S center in order to qualify for updates or warranty, that will bring up the maintenance cost. Okay, yeah, because in our association, we also deal with not just oil change and the usual brake pad and stuff, right? There's one other sector is collision repair. Okay, what happens when the BEV got into an accident, right? So we urge the government to look at not just right to charge policy, there's also a rights to repair policy, right? In Europe, they are pushing this bill. Okay, the end users need to be given a right to repair their cars, not just the BEVs, not a disposable item. Yeah, we don't want that. That's not sustainable. That defeats the whole purpose. In fact, why don't we just stick to ICE, right? Yeah, we're going sustainable. So if the government pushes for rights to repair and end users get a choice to replace their battery outside, right? Imagine in a world like 10 years down the road after owning the EV, and your only choice is going back to Tesla or Mercedes to change your battery. I don't think that's what the end user actually have in mind. We are all banking on the hope that this will happen, but I believe as industrial players, we need to seriously look into this, right? And make sure that we drive towards that direction and not have any monopoly in such case, right? So that will bring into the final price, okay, which is the resale value of the car. Okay, right now we can say that from data achieved from more advanced countries, the resale value of EVs are not that great. Okay, some would say that it's about 20 to 30% lower. This is all because of maintenance cost. Because it's priced in. The moment you sell your car, the replacement price of the battery is already priced in, right? So people already pay 20,000 ringgit less or 30,000 ringgit less for your car. So if we resolve this matter, the BEV transition will go very smoothly. Okay, but not forgetting the hydrogen side of things. Yeah, so that's from our association point of view, and I think for car sales price, leave it to Pekema, right?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Darren. Car sales price, yeah. I mean, we got a lot of that complaints. People are saying EV are more expensive. Even the government has given us all the tax allowance and incentive. You know, the purchase price in the country that we buy is still quite substantial. I mean, to consider with our income, but I think I think price parity for BEV will arrive next year. As of today, we have already seen BYD Dolphins, the Neta V coming in the market already. But I think they need to work with the government on how to make it cheaper and all that, because there are certain policies as well that we need to adhere over here. But I'm not worried about the price. For a seller myself, I think by next year we should see more affordable EV or cheap EV, in fact, cheaper than ICE in the market. It provided if the government allow, right? But then again, just to add on the rights to repair, I think that is very crucial, because yes, as a seller myself, we are a grey market importer, so we are not associated with any OEMs, and we found out that if we want to bring a reused EV from, let's say, from UK, right, we're going to have a problem. The car cannot be fully utilized because there is some what we call region block. For example, every EV today use apps, phone apps. There's a special apps for every EV. Now, if I buy a Taycan, for example, in UK, I'm going to use Europe apps. And if I bring that Taycan to Malaysia, that particular customer that's buying that Taycan have to use Europe apps instead of Malaysian apps. Another example, when we sell Tesla from all over the world, from Hong Kong, from New Zealand, from UK, we bring down here, there is no maps. You know, you got Google Maps, but there's no Tesla Maps, because that car is for Europe. They only have Europe map. So without this map, let's say if I want to navigate to MITEC, they don't have. So what they need to do is they need to contact Tesla, and they need to pay, of course. And Tesla will download it from somewhere and to the car, and the car now have map. So these are the things that we call right to repair. I think that's very crucial. Rights to charge and rights to repair. That's on Pekema's opinion on that matter. So back to the question of numbers targeted. Based on New Straits Times, Indonesia targeted about 600,000 EV to be produced in 2030. Right, and this value is 100 times higher than the production of recorded in the first quarter of 2023. Okay, based on an Indonesia perspective as a developing and ASEAN country, would you mind sharing with us in regard to the policies and enforcement on the e-mobility standard and regulation prior to the achievement of this number?
Yeah. Okay. The question is very challenging for me. Of course, as you know well, to develop the EV industry, we have the 4 pillars. The first is, of course, the government regulation is very important to build the ecosystem of the industry. And the second, we need also to establish the infrastructure. How infrastructure like charging station, as well as the road, to establish for the EV for the domestic market. And the other, the most important is the customer, because the customer have the big impact for this EV industry. Right? Their behavior should be changed. Different with using the internal combustion engine, they can go to the gasoline station, but for the EV, the customers should think, as mentioned by Mr. Lee, and how to educate and how to socialize to the customer, as well as also the impact for the price, right? The quality of the vehicle should be guaranteed, warranty by the maker, right? And also the cost should be competitive. But to know the price still very high. 40% of the vehicle is consists of composed by electric battery and electric motor and PCU, right? And I think this is the very challenging for educate and socialize to our customer. And the fourth about the industry itself. The industry also have the big chain, right? Therefore, my question: the charger produced in Malaysia or in other country still import, and the battery produced in your country or still import. That is will be impacted for the existing industry. They should change making the car that is around 2,000 part number component from the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 suppliers, and making the electric vehicle around 300 or 400 or 500 part number component. Of course, the body is same, but the changing is record technology, right? That is the impact for the industry. So we need to think ecosystem entirely, how to know and how to really the changing happen for such kind of the movement. So this is the one of the homework for the Indonesian Automotive Institute to support and to suggest for the government and also to the community in Indonesia. So I today happy to meet with our friend here, yeah, from many sector, yeah, not only thinking for the customer or the infrastructure, but also thinking for the, yeah, of course the regulation is very important to give the right direction, yeah, to give the right ecosystem for our EV industry. Yeah, that is the challenge for us. Of course, we need to collaborate with many parties, like I mentioned, from academy and from the business and also government and community association, as well as the financing. Yeah, like the success of the Japanese car maker. This is very strong for the financing to the customer. Of course, this is also in line with the government policy, whether will keep the incentive more bigger to customer or to industry. That is also the big initiative, I think, to make more quicker movement for this kind of the EV industry. So this 4 pillars should be considered comprehensively and integratedly. Of course, in our movement in Indonesia, this is need support from also from other country and work with other countries in ASEAN policy, as well as particularly focus also for the Indonesian. So therefore, today is a good opportunity to meet all of you, how to bridge, how to communicate, how to make this happen not only for Indonesian but also for ASEAN. So the best thing is the product making by Indonesian or by ASEAN to be used for the ASEAN people. Yeah, that is our aim. Yeah. To support and to elaborate such kind of the policy, to implement and to make it happen and to make it work in our industry. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be waiting for the day when we can buy cheap battery from Indonesia.
Okay.
Right? So, yeah, next question is to Mr. Nizmar. Talking about ICE, shifting from ICE to EV. So end of life in vehicle is one of the crucial parts in assessing its sustainability of vehicles in the long run, right? So yet it is the most challenging part, right? So would you suggest on how the car manufacturer may come up into a decision where the e-mobility parts and components are not overused or underused, so that safety matters is not compromised? So how MARII will come up with the standards or some something like that to monitor this kind of thing.
Okay, Ben. Thanks. When you talk about end-of-life vehicle ni, because when we mention about for EV, is actually a bit far to reach also, because right now, even for ICE, we haven't implemented yet on end-of-life vehicle, but the implementation of it already been put under the policy. The thing that we're trying to plan is under the roadworthiness concept. Whereby it's not being measured by the numbers of years of the vehicle, but based on the roadworthiness. So the same implementation will be tried to implement for the EV or future next gen vehicle or BEV. The roadworthiness concept is much better to be used, and the advantage of for us to trigger this from BEV is because of most of the data that can be retrieved from the vehicle itself already embedded into the BEV.
Yes.
It's a bit different. For example, like if the old conventional car, you need to implement the telematics, the other features into the conventional car.
Yes.
So based on that, I think government can run a full big data analytics and also identify from the roadworthiness aspect of it. Other than that, if we talk about the related to ELB, because we try to relate it with the ELB, end of life batteries, because there's already imposed for to identify and also they call it as a passport for battery, whereby when you want to try to bring import or export battery based on the passport of battery, but the implementation of overall of it, I think it also can answer for the right to repair related to battery, because that is the element that right now we put for the OEM for them to be part to include it under the CKD to CBU, because on the previous conventional development you only focus on the parts and component, but now with the new elements of EV, for example like battery, the motors, and also the main thing is related to software. The one that you mentioned. That is also the thing that we will request for the OEM in future to pinpoint the data not only back to the HQ, but it must be also reside under in Malaysia. That's why we coming out with the Malaysia Automotive Cloud Web Services for the OEM to pinpoint the data to Malaysia. Right now it's being done, but because of a certain level, the requirement, they need a tier 3 level of data center and so on. We are still in discussion with the OEM to put it under the policy when they commit for the new development under CBU for the CBU purposes. So I think that is the overall scenario of it. But when we mention about next gen vehicle, it's so much related to data management, and also one more thing, if we related to the extended producer responsibility, EPR, we will put into OEM. But to have Pekema or related to great importer, we also can try to impose and also to collaborate and to explore if this can be put. When we mention about triggering back the data to Malaysia, automatically it can be registered through, for example, like Pekema or other associations. That. So we can be the frontier to talk with the OEM from your side, meaning it's not only the update from the HQ, but with the leverage of the Malaysia Automotive Cloud Web Services, it can be activated immediately based on that. Okay?
That's a good idea.
You need around 40 megawatt data center to run through that numbers of TIV by 2030. So based on that, that is to cater for the whole country at that time.
Right. So that's something for TNB to think about. So in a few years ahead, the usage of ICE vehicle is expected to decline because of e-mobility adoption. Impact on the e-mobility shifting will significantly affect the existing trader of ICE vehicle parts and components like us. Right? What sort of advice will you provide to them as for the preparation to stay on the verge of businesses and advancement? Well, this question they asked me to ask Mr. Lee. Can you answer, Mr. Lee?
In terms of the advancement.
Yeah.
So I think the cars are becoming better and better. I think this one is no doubt about that. I think there will be more things that I think we will be seeing in the car. One of the few things that I think it's like a vehicle to grid, things like that are coming in, which I think will help in terms of the utility side and also on the bigger scale. So I feel that these are some of the things that we will need to anticipate, and I think it will be coming sooner than later.
What about Mr. Darren? You have any idea about this?
I think in terms of advancements of the parts and components of this EV, right? Now we are seeing a trend already. Before we go into EV, it has already started. In fact, now your cars are getting smarter. It brakes for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That in our industry is known as ADAS. Okay.
Mhm.
So these ADAS system are just simple to simplify. It's just sensors all around your car.
Yep.
Talking to each other. So right now we have faced issues with the repair from the collision repair industry, where it's quite difficult to calibrate once it has been hit. Okay, so your car brakes earlier or later. So I think again training must be done, or somewhere along the line we are still learning ourselves in the industry, and this adapting is also hindering the change from this ICE to BEV, because anything that the mechanics are not familiar with will be charged more. Okay,
Definitely.
and the cost will be passed down to the end user. So we are also looking closely into this, like getting more people ready to fix these new design vehicles.
Right. As for Pekema, for us, we are preparing ourselves with first the infrastructure. So we build chargers, DC chargers for our customers, build the network, and secondly, we are training is very important. But in order for us to train, we need to get a product, a brand. So we are working on that to get a brand, and with the full support of the OEM. Besides that, I can say, when you buy an EV, for the aftermarket, there's mainly a makeup, like body kits. These are the things that will be in demand, of course. But the brake pads will be after 4 years or 2 years. It's not like every Hari Raya you go to workshop and change your brake pad. So that's the changes that will happen. So last question, bonus question today to Mr. Kugan. CelcomDigi has been one of the leading telecommunication companies in Malaysia with a good reputation, especially in providing maintenance to the existing telecommunication infrastructure. What can we learn from CelcomDigi in providing a well-maintained infrastructure across the country applicable towards e-mobility ecosystem?
Okay. Firstly, telecom operators like CelcomDigi and the other operators globally, we operate by going through a philosophy of the 5 nines in terms of uptime, making sure the infrastructure is up, you have a robust redundancy in terms of infrastructure and connectivity. The similar principles will need to be applied when we get into the EV business. The number of sensors is going to increase tremendously in terms of the devices which is going to use, and the connectivity back to the central data storage will become crucial. Communication just keeps going back and forth. Latency will be important as we move from towards autonomous vehicle to vehicle communication, vehicle to infrastructure communication. All relies back on a robust infrastructure. So for us, it's just to identify and to make sure that on one hand we have a very, very strong connectivity nationwide on 5G as soon as possible. The second portion is to have a very robust cloud infrastructure, data management platform to enable and to collect data from all the sensors out there which is being placed, not only on the EV side, but all the other businesses as well, because analytics becomes so important for us. in terms of identifying, making sure that we are able to collect the data and further improve the performance of the vehicle. So that will be the fundamental approach which we'll use. Traditionally, we are very good at running networks. Now EV is another whole opportunity for us, and we will apply our same principles which has taken us so far over decades. So we will just introduce that when we come to that phase. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, I would like to thank the panelists today, Mr. Made from Indonesia, Mr. Kugan from CelcomDigi, Mr. Lee from Jom Charge, Mr. Darren from the association, and Nizmar from MARII. It has been a very fruitful and open discussion. Hopefully, many of us will get a few pointers on the direction they're moving on, and hopefully that whatever the government is planning for the future will be a success. Thank you very much.